people online as well. I hope you can hear us. There are still people joining now. So the first session this morning will be about the new cooperative, hulo, that's for humanitarian logistics. We'll hear more about that. I just want to let you know at the end, we'll have time for question and answer. So in the room, so prepare your questions as you listen to the different speeches. Welcome. And then we will also have time to take some question online. So if you are online, please type your question in the Q&A chat box, and we'll pick a few questions at the end. Okay for you? Yeah. Yes? Okay, so I will start the introduction of the panelists this morning. So we have with us 4 in the room and 1 online. Maybe I will start with Marie online, Marie Dupré. She's the country director for DRC in Burkina Faso. So Marie, you are online, you can hear us, right?
Yes, I can, Cécile. Hi to all.
Quite early for Marie, I think she's a early bird. And we have with us Paul Jensen, who is the CEO of Fleet Forum. We have Richard Kneller over there from DG ECO, Coordinator Logistic Policy. Edmondo Perrone, Head of Operation at the Global Logistic Cluster. And last but not least, Fabrice Ferraud, Logistic Director at Solidarité Internationale. And then to start, we'll just have an introduction on what is hulo, what does it do, the services, how it works, and we'll have that from Jean-Baptiste Lamarche, who is the CEO of hulo.
Thank you, Cécile. Thank you for joining the session. So that was a few slides. Let me start by telling that for the one that it's not the first time that we come and make some session in HNPW, but we used to appear as a RLH, the former Réseau Logistique Humanitaire group, and we changed the brand name, the brand identity this year, and we are now called hulo, and so that's why we want to have this session with you to give some updates on how did the RLH group progress and change its identity. So we are the first humanitarian cooperative collecting actors and putting resources to optimize logistics and supply chain. So the story, as just a quick reminder, our story of joining forces to increase the impact of aid has started in 2014 with a group of 9 organizations that decided to build a network, the Réseau Logistique Humanitaire. And starting from that, we did several studies, papers to see how we could get better organized to increase the impact of aid within supply chain and logistics. The last paper that we have done on that topic was the strengths in number. And for this paper, that's where we identified all the possible synergies across organizations to improve the impact of aid. And once we had that, we decided to put that in motion. How can we try to answer the question of how can we operationalize those activities that we identified that could be done together. We collected the data of all the members, so the 9 organizations shared their data. So we created a trustful environment to consolidate all those data, and through working out those data, we did identify on evidence-based the possible synergies country per country. Where are we buying the same thing? Where are we doing the same activities, etc., etc. And based on that, we could demonstrate that there is a real opportunity to work together. We also worked on clarifying the relationship across organizations, because it's always a bit confusing. We are all organizations working for the general interest of beneficiaries, but we are also in the same time competitor, competing for funding, competing for human resources and so on. So we had to clarify this relationship, and we found this model, which is a co-petition model, which allows the possibility to be in competition in some aspect of our activities, but also to be able to collaborate and to work together on some other activities, such as logistics and supply chain. With that, so we are all the elements to be able to demonstrate that we have to work together. And so we did work. It's very detailed, but it's just to drive the flow, and you will have the slide if you want. That we worked out on identifying what would be the best vehicle or the best structure to carry on those activities. And we did a lot of investigation in many type of organizations, and we finally end up on a shared platform in a cooperative. Even if it was the worst one, it's a green one, the most difficult one to implement. At the time we were about to kick off the creation of the cooperative, as all of us, we faced the COVID-19, and this has a bit stopped our progress and make it turn to the COVID response. And all of us, all the logistic directors from organizations did gather together, try to identify the needs, the bottleneck, and with clear needs identification for the people to transport and for the goods that were locked down. We had the chance to go to the French government and to the European Union ECHO, and together we have built the humanitarian, first European humanitarian air bridge, and that gives a lot of visibility to the former hulo RLH. And everyone's have seen the value creation of working together, and we've been pushed by many organizations, even by internally by the CEOs of our organization to institutionalize this way of working. And that's where we've created hulo, an inclusive cooperative gathering logistic and supply chain actors of the humanitarian response to build solutions together. And that was the start of the project. So what do we do in hulo? We facilitate first through a digital platform the sharing of resources, and so that's a platform that is still under construction, but that has been piloted in Burkina Faso, where we connect the different actors and be able to share our resources and also ask for support across the organizations. We do joint initiatives, so joint procurement initiative, joint transport initiative. Joint procurement, for example, we do call for tender together. We did a major one in Burkina Faso with the RRM kit, and we had a very positive results in terms of cost saving, but also in terms of increasing quality, also in terms of availability of goods in the market. So that was very positive, and we are pursuing that in many other markets. Joint transport initiative, we'll hear more about it, but with the Fleet Forum, we are partnering to work on vehicle sharing across organizations. Joint human resources initiative is we shared, for example, an electrician across 7 organizations in Bangui, and so to have this expertise for many actors. And joint environmental initiative, so that's also something that we start. We are looking at joining forces to rebuild waste collection, for example. That's also a project that we are working on. We also keep on working with the international transport. So we still have this EU air bridge that is active with ECHO. And we also brought in the Airbus Foundation that is giving free planes also. We are working on a digital supply chain solution. So with the link that is the software that has been developed by ACF that is transferred to the cooperative. And finally, we have We are building capacity on business intelligence. We have a business analytics and research department that is really working on the data of all the organization joining to better identify where we by working together, we will create value. Right now, we are deployed in Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, DRC, and since this week in Lebanon, and we are about to open Jordan for the Syrian crisis. We are also active at a global level. It's a growing ecosystem. So since the beginning of the 9 organizations gathering to create this hulo, we've been creating a dedicated executive team. And we've been supported, and we are supported, strongly supported by DG ECHO, the French Centre de Crise et de Soutien, and DHA. We also got some support from the HELP Foundation. We are working closely with academics to make sure that our innovations and transformations are respecting good practices. We onboarded 2 new associates, Intersos and Bioport. We are working with many other participants from a big international organization to local NGOs. And so just to remind that RLH and hulo is not a closed and private group, it's really open to anyone. And so this is, you don't have to be an associate to participate to joint initiatives. We are working also closely with suppliers because we think that suppliers are part of the solution. And so we don't see as external actor of the humanitarian supply chain. We really want them to be partner and work with us on finding solutions. We are working with foundations and support, and we also have a new partnership, but growing partnership with the Fleet Forum, bringing its expertise in fleet management. And we received our first direct funding through the Plan Innovation Fund. That was the first to deliver a funding directly to the cooperative. We are also working closely with the logistic cluster and with the Réseau Environnement Humanitaire, which is a network of environmental experts. And to finalize this introduction, we are H with H, so it's not H2H, we are H with H. We are humanitarian working with humanitarian. We are working together to find solutions together. And so we decided for this panel to let the participants of this initiative giving their feedbacks. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Cécile, over to you.
Merci. Great. And again, you know, this is a dialogue. It's not a one-way discussion. So at the end, we want to have as many questions as possible. So Jean-Baptiste said the idea was like, in supply chain, we work in the same place, we do the same activity, we can do them better together. That's the idea. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We just gave it a structure so everyone can join. Resource pooling used to happen based on relationships a lot. So now there is a structure where everybody can join. And it's open to everyone. So the idea now is to hear exactly from the actors, from people benefiting from the services, participating in the services, from their point of view, what is the value addition. And Marie, actually, you just connected, thank you. We'll go first to you, Marie. So I remind you, Marie is the country director of DRC in Burkina Faso. So from a country director perspective, Marie, a user of the services in the Burkina context, what value does it bring?
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks again for inviting me. I'm really glad to join. I'm sorry I'm not in presential. I'm in Ouagadougou at the moment. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Okay. So yeah, maybe a brief history of hulo in Burkina Faso. So as Jean-Baptiste was saying,
can you hear me, Marie? We'll just give a minute to the technical team to fix the issue because we cannot hear you in the room.
Okay.
Okay. I think we can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So I was saying hi to everybody. I hope you can hear me well now. I'm really happy to be presenting today. I'm in Ouagadougou and I'm not able to join in presential. but I would love to meet you all in the room. Yeah, so maybe to start by a short presentation of the history of hulo in Burkina Faso. The program here started end 2021, and 2022 has been really the beginning of hulo project, and it's gone very fast in country. We have included 9 members last year, including, of course, DRC, but 2 national NGOs were also added to the members participants in Burkina. We also, as Jean-Baptiste said, launched and finalized our first mutualized supply process that was selected on NFI kits for the rapid response mechanisms. Maybe just to mention that Danish Refugee Council is not a board member of hulo, but an active participant of the Burkina Faso initiative. And this year, we also decided, in consultation with all the members of hulo here, that we would host the hulo teams in our offices. So if you ever come to Ouagadougou, please come and visit hulo in the DRC office. I mean, I guess some of you will know the context in Burkina Faso. We are experiencing a new and fast evolving crisis, which also means that because it's new, it's easier to change and to implement new ways of working in the country. We have a quite young coordination, which is both an issue, a challenge on some aspects, but also an opportunity for hulo to connect with all the coordination and exist within and make room for hulo in the coordination system. And we have, of course, high access and operational constraints all over the country, which led to the presence of different logistics product program or member, including Atlas, the logistic cluster, and UNAS. I'll touch upon that on my talking points afterwards. And we have an increased dependency on humanitarian flights in the country. When preparing this session, I tried to. Can you hear me? I hear some noise in the room. Okay. When preparing the session, I was trying to summarize what hulo has brought to Burkina and why is it that we in Burkina are very much actively involved in the program. And I came up with 4 main points. The first one is, I think in Burkina, what we really appreciated with the project.
Go ahead, Marie, don't worry.
Yeah.
I think it's people online.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we hear you very well.
Okay, super. Good. Yeah, I think the first point is that in Burkina, we really appreciated the way hulo entered the country and the very strong participative approach that the program brought together. It's all about cooperation and the fact that the partners are heavily associated to each step and all the decisions that are being made has been critical in putting us on board. The link between the partners and the consultation by hulo to the partners to prioritize the project and how should we start and on which aspects of hulo mandate has been extremely appreciated and led to a robust acceptance of hulo amongst the humanitarian community and all the members of the project. The linked to this participation approach and the cooperation it entails, I think for me, one of the key elements that hulo has brought to the table is the partnership approach, not only between the members of the project, but also with the suppliers. The relationship that hulo built with the suppliers that are partners to hulo, but also like more broadly, is really strong, and it's only been a year. So with the coming years, I think this network of suppliers and external partners will grow, and we already have demands to join the group in Burkina. The way hulo is also considering capacity building of the suppliers is something that organizations are not mandated to do. The time they take with suppliers to explain processes, to explain how organizations work, to discuss about their challenges, that is something that is really interesting for the sector, and to develop further this private-public partnership. One of the lessons learned, though, is that it does need a high involvement of the country directors. That is key to the success of the initiative. It is not per se, I mean, it is of course a logistic program, but it is the discussions that need to happen are really happening at a strategic level. It is a strategic project, and there are many strategic positionings that needs to be taken. And the involvement of senior leadership in the organizations is key for the program to be successful. And that's definitely a lesson learned for Burkina operation. The involvement of the country directors in Burkina has been extremely strong, and we've been mobilized on the program, which was really good, and that led to many successes already in 1 year. The second aspect, and of course that's one of the most obvious one, and one of the expectation of the hulo initiative, is the reduction of costs on the supplies that we buy, but also an increased efficiency for us. It does reduce the work burden on the programs and the logistics team, and it also, and in the context of reduced funding globally, and with an increased number of prizes, that is something that we cannot disregard anymore. However, like the measurement of the gain in the effectiveness of the supply chain processes is not yet completely done, especially as it is difficult to measure the time that our teams did not spend on a task. But that has definitely reduced the burden, and it will even more this year as we're launching a number of tender processes with hulo. The third aspect that's maybe a bit less expected, but that is really interesting, is kind of a third-party monitoring on the supply chain processes. The fact that that an external actor is coming on board to manage a tender process has also led to interesting conclusions on some of the price that other organizations were paying. And the discussions with the suppliers on the modalities, challenges they have, challenges we have, has also been extremely interesting, as almost an external evaluation of our supply chain, of our individual supply chain processes. And I think that's on the long run could and should increase the transparency and potentially reduce the fraud risks within each organizations on the supply chain processes. Mostly, but that is a very unexpected outcome that I personally find very interesting, and investing in a third-party actor that will come and not only reduce the cost but also increase the transparency and the reflection on each partner exposure to fraud and risks is extremely interesting and effective. And last, another unexpected outcome has actually been the operational standardization of the content and the quality of items we purchase. Let me explain myself. We are in a very young crisis, as I was mentioning earlier. Therefore, some of the technical discussions at the sector level, at the cluster level, has not yet happened, or has happened at a national level and may not be operationalized in each organization as it should. What hulo did and what hulo discovered really is that we are not aligned. I mean, we may not be always aligned with the technical standards, not only the clusters versus the participants of the hulo network, but also between the participants of the hulo network. And some of the standards that the clusters put together and established are actually not operationalized or not efficient enough to be operationalized. We have a couple of examples on the NFI kits and discussions on each article quality and technicity, and that has slowed down the process, because what we thought was quite straightforward in terms of we have an NFI kit content that has been defined by the cluster has actually been much more complicated in terms of the capacity of the market to deliver on the quality, to put all the partners together and agree on a certain level of quality per article. But and we also have an example, a current example on the enriched flour that we discovered are not aligned with what has been done for 12 years by the development actors. This aspect and how hulo, because of their relationship with both the cluster system, the suppliers, and the partners of the hulo initiative, is extremely interesting and is leading to technical discussions. And that again will need to include technical persons and experts in the discussion, and not only logistics team. I'm going to briefly conclude on the fact that hulo in Burkina is only at the very beginning, is only a beginning, and it's only been a year and a half, or more or less. But despite the fact that it's only beginning, we already have multiple advantages that were noticed, not only by me, but also by most of the members, if not all of the members of the hulo initiative. The next projects that we have prioritized are on environmental standards, and especially the reduction of plastic. That's another added value of hulo. Some of the aspects on which organizations may be slow in responding because it needs different technical approach, a lot of discussions with the suppliers, potentially changing the way the suppliers act. That has been prioritized for hulo this year. We're also working on the digitalization of the log processes with an online platform and statistics. We also started the component on the shared human resources, especially the IT, and we are now recruiting an IT that will be shared by different members of the hulo initiative. And last but not least, we want to enhance the mutualization of rentals and co-share some of the buildings we have in the country, be it offices, stocks, or guest houses. And of course, that's on the top of additional supply chain tender processes that have been prioritized and launched in 2023. Last sentence.
Marie, do you hear me? Marie?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. It's so very interesting, but I think I will have to stop you here because of the time. But thank you for sharing all your experience, and also for involvement as a country director. As you said, it was very critical. And please stay online if there are questions at the end. You stay with us, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Marie.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll switch to another perspective now. We'll go to you, Richard. As I said, you work for DG ECHO. So DG ECHO was also one of the first to found this project. It was a bold step for us to trust that new initiative, innovation. So why did DG ECHO took such a bold step to fund hulo? And what about maybe next step of coordination amongst donors?
Thank you. Do I need a microphone?
If you speak up.
There's one in the okay, sure. Yeah, so as you say, I mean, there's kind of two parts to this, which is the experience of DG ECHO and the journey we've been through, and then other donors. I mean, we can only speak on behalf of ourselves, but there's been something in the air within DG ECHO for many years now on logistics, because I think since the middle of well, the last decade, basically, it kept coming up that we were trying to do some operations. We were interested in how things were going, but there's always been other priorities. And I think this has been the experience of it, you know, across the sector, that there have been a lot of things like localization and greening coming up and so on. But because we had this operational basis as ECHO, we kept it kept coming back, and then we did an evaluation that was published in I think it was 2019. That was basically recommending that we do a policy on humanitarian logistics. And on the basis of that, we started looking into this a bit more. And it was very fortuitous because around the same time, RLH, as it was then, was looking very carefully at this. We were able to look at, you had the documents Delivering in the Moving World, and so on, strength in numbers. And also, I mean, we have a history. You approached us then, and it's very difficult when you have 9 INGOs knocking on your door saying, look, there's all this evidence, you know, backed up with all our experiences. And then we started going out and talking to other partners, WFP, the log cluster, and so on, and saying, well, you know, what do you think about this? And we got a very positive response. But what we heard back was that donors were maybe very well placed to drive change, because a lot of this information was kind of staying at logistics director level, supply chain director level. But to elevate it to the central organizational level, you know, it wasn't getting traction. So we were approached as a donor with the voice we have. You know, luckily, as you know, we have a hand on the funding to see what we could do about this. And we started approaching our own senior management, sensitizing them. And it's something that we've said many times. Maria, who is my team leader there, keeps saying, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's about this kind of communication journey. But then you mentioned, you know, the history. We had the humanitarian air bridge. So we also then saw into RLH, we saw the operational capacity. We received after that a proposal on the hulo model, which, because of all this confidence that had been built up, we were able to talk to our management and present it, and they, with this policy and the evaluation and so on, we could then move forward. So and you know, the figures around the supply chain, that it's 60 to 80% of all humanitarian funds and so on. I mean, it does stick in people's heads. So, and then, you know, if you translate that to closing the funding gap based on the proportion of funding that represents, the savings it can represent, if you're making 5 or 7% savings across you know, all procurement, which makes up, you know, most of the supply chain costs. So once you have all these things ready, it's kind of a very easy sell, and RLH and now hulo have made it a very easy sell. So then going to how we see it going forward, I mean, we obviously support the model, but we're talking to other donors as well, because I mean, we've had the advantage of seeing this journey and being sensitized to these benefits. So we have been talking to other donors, seeing where they are with it. I mean, there's different levels of kind of you know, where they've got to in terms of understanding the supply chain environment and strategic level, because it's not really out there yet, and we're trying to do this. But I think a lot of what comes back is They understand that added burden is not useful for partners, but nor for donors either, because many donors are working, with a very kind of light structure, given the amount of funding that is involved. But in general, they're open to it. But then, as a donor, it comes down to, I guess, what we can do to support this. And I think just by saying it's something we're interested in, and it kind of sits a bit outside of the typical way humanitarian funding is done. And also, I mean, you have other questions that come up, like how the interplay is with the global logistics cluster. So for that, I mean, we've talked a lot with the GLC to kind of make sure that this will kind of fit. But yeah, I mean, it keeps coming back to the fact that how can this not happen when you look at the different numbers and so on. So I think for ECHO, it's about sensitizing our own staff as well, making sure that in the field they understand that this is something we are now interested in. It requires that they are able to kind of then look ahead a bit. And actually, something that we found as well is it's like any change. I mean, you can put it on the table, but you have to do a lot of advocacy around it and a lot of encouraging. Because I mean, I think, of course, I mean, when it comes down to funding, which is the lifeblood of any organization, people are going to be a bit cautious. So donors have to send a strong signal to say that this is something we're interested in, and they have to be speaking in a consistent way, both from HQ and the field. Because if we HQ say yes, this is great, we love it, and then in the field actually they're saying that they either don't understand the concept or or they're not sure about it. I mean, we have to really be consistent. So yeah, I'd say these are kind of my main elements.
Thank you, Richard. And he's still around also for questions at the end. Great. Okay, we'll move to you, Paul. As I said, you're CEO of Fleet Forum, so a partner of hulo. So maybe you can tell us from your point of view, what are the synergies it's created, the win-win, but also a bit of the constraints, maybe.
Well, let me tell you, and I hope after my short presentation, we can all conclude that I'm very happy with the partnership with hulo. You see, Fleet Forum is, well, most of you might know, but Fleet Forum is let's say, a community, a network of around 50 organizations working together on improvement of fleet management performance. Looking at environmental impact of transport, road safety, cost efficiency, and also effectiveness of transport. That's what we do. So we are a strong network, a strong community with people who are driven to make fleet management better, to improve fleet management. At the same time, we are just one network. We are one as well. And we have people with like-minded ideas, the same objectives, the same challenges. And what we see is by partnering with hulo, then all of a sudden that brings in other perspectives. It brings in insights from a wider perspective sometimes, but just different ideas, because it's different people who are working together in a different network. So what you see is it creates more creativity by working together between the two networks. That makes this partnership for us, in the first sense, more powerful, because it creates more creativity. The innovation power is higher. What we see is we do realize that fleet management is only part of logistics. And you see, if you look at the challenges, the focus areas, the priorities of logistics directors, is that fleet management does not always get the attention it needs to really make steps up in professional fleet management, which we do understand, but it is the case. That's what we as Fleet Forum struggle with. But partnering with hulo, we see that we can bring in the expertise of fleet management, and we can use the strength of the network of hulo to implement it, to even accelerate it. Because by working together with hulo, we see that there's a strong commitment from many organizations to work with us, to use our expertise. So it means that improvement initiatives will accelerate. A good example, I think, is what JB already said, the vehicle sharing project. So we were able, as Fleet Forum, with the support of BHA, to run a proof of concept for vehicle sharing in Lebanon. So we know that it works, and we proved that it can work, but we've been out by partnering with hulo and also with support from the get-go, we can expand the, let's say, the project in Lebanon, but also go to another country and start up vehicle sharing in car. And it really fits in, well, what hulo wants to do, what we want to do is collaborate together, sharing of resources, pooling of resources, and prevent duplication of efforts, prevent all the organizations reinventing the wheel. And by working together, so we can bring in the expertise specifically on, I would say, the needs of fleet management, but really leverage on the network, the strong network of hulo. So what you see is that, I would say, innovation power becomes much larger. We can develop more solutions, and we can accelerate it. So at the same time, what we see is that, well, I think we've worked together quite a long time with Aralash. We had many discussions, and it's the sort of the same DNA. And that's, I think, important as well. If you bring your networks together, you should have sort of a shared idea or shared DNA. The same approach. We have an aligned approach and always thinking, why are we here? What is it we want to achieve? What is the impact that we have? How do we measure the impact that we realize? So very much a doers mentality, but at the same time, very much impact driven. And for us, by working with hulo, you are so much looking at the impact that you realize with everything that you do. That means for us, all the initiatives that we do together, like the vehicle sharing project, that's the first project, we are much better able also to see what the impact is. So what does it mean for reduction of cost? What does it mean for reduction of environmental impact? What does it mean for reduction of crashes? How can we better support programs with transport services? So that part, so the same DNA, but especially I would say the impact-driven mentality of hulo is for us a great benefit of working together. And maybe last but not least is the commitment of senior management amongst the hulo members is extremely important. Well, nothing new. If you want to have innovation, if you want to change things, you need to have the support of senior management, which is from an organization like Fleetform not always easy because we deal with global fleet managers, which are, let's say, a bit far from senior management. That's the struggle that we have. With partnering with hulo, the governance model that you developed means that there is a strong support from senior management. So that are just some of the benefits. And this afternoon we will have more discussions with hulo and its members. I see that there are many more initiatives that we can work on. But if you see, it's pooling of resources. And if you see, for example, again, with the vehicle sharing project, but also other initiatives, we can accelerate innovative approaches with less resources than if we would do it together. So that's only benefits for both sides. So again, I think I can only conclude that I'm very happy with the partnership and I see a bright future ahead.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, it's great to have the perspective from a partner. There will be many more partners soon. Okay, so we'll move to you, Edmondo, Global Logistic Cluster. So the cluster is also a connecting actor, right? Yes. We work closely with the Global Logistic Cluster. So how do you see such initiative complementing actually the role of the cluster?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here. I've recently joined the cluster as a head of operation, and we have worked bilaterally with many organizations that are part now of the network, and we need to work together and learn how to work together with this new approach. Before we go into the details, I would like to give a brief overview for the audience and the people that are listening us online on our mandate and some of the difference that maybe are that we have between hulo and the cluster, also to explain that we are not duplicating an effort, but we work in this complementary way that you were mentioning. So first of all, our mandate comes directly from the YASC. We have our obligation coming from the interagency standing committee with the WFP at the greatest comparative advantage in logistics, and so we've been mandated to lead the cluster. The main reason why the cluster was launched were to increase efficiency in the humanitarian response. It's probably this is linked as well to hulo, but from what I understand from your presentation, hulo as well concentrate on development aspects, while the logistics cluster mostly concentrate on emergency response. We do that trying to ensure predictability of the leadership and accountability of the humanitarian response. And then we try to address gaps and challenges together, and in some cases also providing solutions to overcome these shared gaps. So the first role is coordination, and so we try to act as a liaison body between all the different humanitarian actors, UN, NGOs, government, national authorities. Second core function, as you know, is then information management. We try to raise awareness about all the logistics aspects. An example is the logistics cluster website, the LCA, the meetings that we try to organize to share the information. And the last one, in case there is a serious gap, is to provide common services. But this is always based on needs when there is not enough capacity in country. So we have a different aim maybe for some aspects, but definitely many points where this complementarity can be seen. As I was saying, probably one of the main difference and also aspect of complementarity is that we try to intervene only when the local capacity is overwhelmed. We don't want to compete with the local transport or storage market. So together with the partners, now with hulo, or with the participants of hulo, we assess the capacity of the local market, and then we decide together if there is the needs of establishing services or not. And we do that as well to avoid the duplication of efforts, to avoid concentration. Sometimes everybody works in a region and another region remain uncovered. So through our coordination, we try to make sure that enough capacity is established everywhere to avoid bottlenecks and gaps. So to avoid concentration or lack of resources. And through coordination, we try to make sure that we do make the best use of the available resources. So maybe sometimes there is no need to provide services. Sometimes it's just an issue that can be solved by better coordinating what is already available. And another aspect is that, unfortunately, especially during the emergency, we cannot always plan our intervention in a way of saving money. Sometimes, especially during the first phases, when the prices are high, when we need to arrange life-saving intervention, unfortunately, the cost effect is not always something we can afford to look into. And we have seen also when we have our meetings in the field with the colleagues, etc., is that the logistics cluster look mainly into storage and transport. So we don't work together on admin mutualizations or ICT support.
light vehicles for us, as unfortunately, is not that is something that is discussed during our meetings. We will look only at transport of cargo, not transport of personnel or passengers. And as well, procurement is something that we discuss, but is not the main focus of the cluster. Through the LCA, that probably is a tool that you know, the logistics capacity assessment. We as well collect and share information on procurement, but our main focus remain transport and storage of cargo. And yeah, we work only when there is a specific activation endorsed by the community. Unfortunately, it's not something that the participant can propose and we can discuss together if there is a need or not, but then we always need to have the endorsement of the IASC if intervene or not. I already mentioned the fact that we provide services only in case of last resort, and then WFP became the provider. We don't provide bilateral services, but we do. We set up our services for all the community, irrespective if the user is a member or not member, or participant or not participant. When we set up our services, we make them available for everybody, from the national counterparts to the international NGO, local NGO. So they are basically unrestricted and not bilateral. And then one last thing that will bring me also back to the point of collaboration that you mentioned is the fact that we support projects of partner organizations that are included in the HRP, because as cluster lead agency, if we want another organization to collaborate with the logistics cluster and also access to the humanitarian funds, we need to make sure that that organization is part of the humanitarian planning exercise, HNO, HRP, etc. So this is also a point where eventually we could collaborate together if hulo in the next few years, or even starting from this year, would like to collaborate in the humanitarian planning cycle, is something where I see complementarity and where hulo could play a role in this humanitarian planning cycle. Another point of collaboration that I think is very important is probably the further development of the LCA, the logistics capacity assessment. You will be working in light vehicles, procurement, standards, etc. So definitely working together in making the LCA, this public logistics capacity assessment that we host on our website, I think is something that could be very useful to share all the information that you collected with the community. So we need to work together and see if, as the LCA is now, as all the necessary information that you think could be useful for the hulo participants, and we want to make sure that the hulo partners are also interviewed for the gap and needs assessment that we do every year in every country where we work, to decide if it extend or modify the mandate of the cluster. So we want to make sure that this interaction is continued, not only with the individual organization, but maybe as well with hulo directly as a network, because we already, as I was saying before, without knowing, but I think we already work with all the organization partners of hulo. And definitely as well, given that you work all in country where probably there is not a cluster activated, but we need to be ready to respond to emergency. Another aspect on which we are investing a lot is preparedness. So also in country where there is no cluster activated, we have a preparedness project that we can further develop together. I want to make sure that you collaborate with our colleagues where a preparedness project is activated. market assessment definitely is another point that is something where we can work together. And yeah, this in country where you provide services is something where we need to collaborate to make sure that we don't cross our path, or the services are offered in line with the cluster mandates, if they are in line with the cluster mandates, and define when is a common service or when is mutualization. So definitely also is an aspect where we need to work together. I mentioned the HRT and the humanitarian planning. That is definitely a point that we need to, on which we need to work and advocate together, maybe with the donors, making sure that the roles are clarified. And
Maybe a closing point in one.
the closing point, and I think is very important, is the transition, because when a cluster is deactivated, when there is no need to common services or a formal cluster, or I don't know, a specific intervention, maybe this is where we can also work together on when a cluster is deactivated, maybe passing some of the responsibility to the hulo network in order to ensure this transition. Thanks.
Thank you. It's very interesting because we since the beginning of a relationship, and there are so many opportunities to co-create and build together and be complementary. But thank you for your perspective. Excellent. So last but not least, Fabrice Perrault, Solidarité International Logistic Director. I think in your role today, it's more you're one of the 9 founding members. We've been rolling his sleeves for years, and also the president.
Topic, because it's been discussed for many years, and so I'm really happy to hear that we are working together in the same direction, avoiding duplication. That's very nice to hear. Thank you, Edmondo. Just before talking about the benefit, just coming back on the story of hulo, I'm going to be quick, but it's important for you to understand that this project is a project we've been working on since almost 10 years. In 2024, it's going to be 10 years that 9 organizations are working together, and I wanted to talk here about the commitment of all of these organizations, because it's been 10 years now that individuals, so director of logistics, senior management, as you were mentioning, Paul, director of logistics of 9 organizations are committed every week from 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, a lot of time dedicated to this project. And the organization themselves, beside the individuals, my organization, ACF, Handicap International, Plan International, all of the organizations, Oxfam, themselves, they decided to put resources, time within the organization to make this project possible. And that was a lot of time, that was a lot of resources, that was a lot of risk. And from my president perspective, I want to say thank you to all of that organization, because that's why we are here today. Plus, in terms of investment, we can talk about ACF investing in a supply chain management system, which is the link, which is a high-value system. Took time to be developed, and now it has been basically given to the cooperative, given to hulo, so that it benefits to the whole humanitarian community. Also, Plan International gave money, funded hulo directly. So I wanted to talk about it. Then donors, of course. We have the support from ECHO, from the French CDCS, from DHA, and they decided to jump with us on this adventure, to take the risk. So I wanted to say thank you today. So now, why all of this commitment? And then I'm gonna take my logistician hat, not president hat, not director of logistics of Solidarité. As a logistician, why? What does hulo bring to me? Actually, many things. Technically speaking, in terms of procurement, savings. Okay, it was mentioned that's obvious that one of the main activity, but saving we start with I think it was before hulo, it was RLH, but 5 years ago, we decided to work together on a joint call for tender for IT equipment at HQ levels. This gave us, with 3 organizations from hulo, 8% of savings on a 1 million budget, okay, 80,000 euros, just working together for 2-3 months at that one point. If you look at what's happening now in Burkina Faso for market as NFI, hulo is bringing up to 15% savings, according to the organization. So why are doing that? That's obvious. It's for saving. Why? Because we want to deliver more aid for the beneficiaries, so we need more money for the beneficiary. We want to do more savings. But also, we are always struggling as a logistician to support or to fund the support costs, the cost for logistician, the cost for technical position. What brings hulo? It was said by JB, an electrician in Central African Republic. I don't know, one of you who knows Central African Republic, but having a qualified electrician in Central African Republic, it's a nightmare, okay? And then getting the money, having the fund to pay an electrician full-time for each organization, that's impossible. We never did it at Solidarité for 10 years. But thanks to hulo, yes, we decided to share an electrician. That's obvious, no? If I say it so, that's obvious. But you need the structure to do it. You need to explain to the organization how to do it, what kind of documentation you have to sign, how the cost sharing works. And this is what hulo is about. The same idea with an IT in Burkina Faso, IT manager in Burkina Faso, that's not an easy job, and it's very difficult to fund. It's a support cost. So how can we fund it? We share. And this is the plan in Burkina Faso. Vehicles. That's obvious, no? We should share vehicles. I mean, in Beirut, Lebanon, how many individual cars are we using as NGOs? 1,000 different cars. We are going all to the same direction. We are all going to the airport. We are going to the same bases, to the same cities. That's obvious. So that's what hulo will bring with the help of Fleet Forum, of course. But we want to make the obvious possible, actually. And that's why I believe in the project. Then in terms of procurement, again, Marie was mentioning something very interesting about the fact that procurement is very time consuming for our teams. Procurement, and that's the main difference with the logistic clusters in terms of mandate and activity. We in the humanitarian community, like that kind of forum, we always talk about supply chain. Supply chain is transport and storage. But procurement itself, for us, it's going to be between 70 and 90% of the activities of our staff at field level. So they don't have time. So having a structure helping our logistician, our procurement manager, to have one call for tender for 9 organizations, for 10 organizations, 15 organizations, instead of having each organization one call for tender, it's a huge difference in terms of time. And that's for us, and that's also for the supplier. JB was in Burkina Faso a few months ago, and all the suppliers said, thanks to hulo, I don't have to apply to 9 different calls for tender for NFI kits for 9 different organizations. I just apply once, and then they organize themselves. So that's the added value I see. Last but not least, information system. As Solidarité, I would have never been able to afford an information system for supply chain management. It's very expensive, or it's unaffordable. Thanks to that, what we did with Handicap International and Link to share the cost of development, not of development, the cost of maintenance, the cost of the run. And what we'll do in the future, meaning opening the second version of this software for any organization who wish to jump in, that's the great idea. Actually, we are going to share this cost, and the cost of a system is millions of euros. And sorry, but organization like the size of Solidarité, but which is the size of many organizations, no one can afford that kind of system. But if we split the cost, it's possible. And supply chain management system, sorry, but it has to be used today. In 2023, no one can work on Excel anymore, so we have to find solution. So that's why that brings value, and that's why we are all that much committed into that. But we are still hoping to get more organization in the project. We are doing better. We are now 11 official associates, but we are working with many organizations. As JB was mentioning, you don't have to be an associate to work with hulo or to benefit from the services of hulo or to share services with hulo. Anyone can do it, but the governance is open, and any organization can be an associate. So it's not a club. It's not a closed French organization, despite our accent with JB and I. No, that's not that anymore. That was RLH. No, that's an international organization open to any type of organization, agency, and yeah, I'm pretty exciting to look forward in the future and to have more organizations joining us, local level, international level.
Thank you, Fabrice. Something you said, we make the obvious possible. We like it should be the mantra. But it's true because, as I said, pooling resource, working together with something that was happening for decades based on relationship. But hulo creates a legal structure platform for everybody to share, everybody to join. So that will be now the closing of the session. Thank you, everyone. For all the different input perspective with your different hats. Thank you, Marie, you're still online. So now we want to give the 25 minutes we have left to open for question, discussion, because as I said in the beginning, it's a dialogue. It's the beginning of an adventure where we want more people to join. So we want to hear from you. So we'll take questions from the room. Cecile, if you can put the chat, maybe if you can, I don't know if you can put the chat on the screen so we can see if there are questions in the chat as well. But while we're working on that, question from the room? Don't be shy. Yes?
Yes,
Just speak up. I think we can, yeah, we don't have microphone. But...
Good morning, I'm Florent Chenier. I'm the head of project for EDUPS. So I'm going to ask you a question, fishing for my own chapel. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It's great to see that many friendly faces and to see an initiative pushing into the direction of working together. Among the different presentations about hulo, you talked about shared procurement, shared fleet, shared HR, shared information system. I know you have the Bioport system as a shared warehouse in a way at international level. The question is why no mention of sharing warehousing at country level? Is there specific barriers or is there anything preventing that from happening?
Because it's not the case so far. We haven't done it already, but if it needs to be done at some point, I mean, the first thing is to look what's already existing, and we were talking about the logistic cluster before. If there is, for instance, an operation of the cluster with shared warehouse or common services provided by a cluster, of course, hulo will never do that. But then, in other cases, in other situations, if there is a local capacity in terms of warehousing, if organizations are able to rent warehouses, then we're gonna organize, of course, we're gonna help organizations to work together in sharing a warehouse between organizations. So that's possible. Never did it, but that's possible. That's
Thanks.
Good. Yeah.
Can I jump in, Cecile, because I can't raise my hand actually.
Go ahead, Marie.
On the shared warehouses, actually, we started in Burkina, although it's quite informal still. But the partners of hulo have started to proactively engage with one another to share different buildings. Actually, like not like of course stocks, but also guest houses, offices, etc. And the last example is one of the members of the hulo initiative here reaching out to hulo saying they have room in a stock and they would like to share that for a couple of months, and like hulo opening to all the partners of the initiative to see if anyone is interested, and actually a couple of us were. So it is starting. It is starting.
Ah, bon. Merci, Marie. Thank you. Great. Other question over there?
Yes. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. Hugo Chenio, Nagel, Emergency and Relief. To follow up on the forum question, is there a plan or is it considered to include the procurement of logistic services within the hulo services, or will it be done via Bioport? What's the consideration of this?
if the procurement is going to be done via Bioport.
The procurement of logistic services, transport mainly in the development context. Is it
actually partners can use services provided through Bioport as a specialist in transport, so we can bring partners to Bioport to work with them, but that's not going to be the only one entity dealing with transport for partners.
People online also, don't hesitate to put your question in the chat box as well. Yeah. Any more question or everything is clear? I can say, yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Ruben with Deloitte, and in the midst of a growing ecosystem the way you have, are there any key priorities in terms of partners that you're looking for, any gaps that currently still exist for you?
We're looking for any gaps that still exist. This is a good question.
Are there, in your ecosystem, if there are any gaps that currently exist that you feel are a key priority for you to tackle in order to do your operation?
Well, there are some strategic partnership that we are preparing and working on right now. In terms of having some leadership in some areas of the world, and where the momentum is about there to be able to relay hulo. And so we are right now working with an organization that is ready to go. And so that's an example. I don't want to say the name because the partnership is not finalized yet, but this is something that we are developing. There are other type of partnership with other expertise groups, such as the Fleet Forum, but where we want to reinforce the link to get better expertise and better advices. I'm thinking of the IAPG, for example, Interagency Procurement Group, where we are interlinked with them, and we really want to reinforce the link. There are other partnerships where we are really also learning is with the private sector. And there is a very interesting one that is ongoing and saying, like, I don't want to say the name for the moment, but which is linked to us, and where we know that we have a win-win relationship together. So that's another one. And after, last but not least, which is also very important, is to reinforce our capacity to work with local partners. And that's really starting in Burkina Faso. We have active participation from the local NGOs, but we really want to scale that up in order to really support the localization agenda. This is really part of our DNA. Most of the NGO working with hulo are doing over 90% of their procurement locally, and so we really want to also to accompany that with the local NGOs and community. So that's again, it's an initiative. We are at the we are finalizing kind of the pilot phase, and so now we are really climbing the scaling up, and so that's also another. We are a bit of a startup, so that's another challenge is to accompany the growth and to make sure that we are not falling. So we have to control that.
Maybe to add on that, I'm commenting. I don't know if I can comment the facilitator, but I'm commenting. Also, every time hulo opens services in a new country, it's a specific context, right? Specific needs, and the needs are defined with the local partner. What are your main needs? Where can we share resource? Where are the gaps? How can we fill the gaps? So it's every time a new analysis, because it's very different if we work in Lebanon or in Burkina Faso or in Central African Republic, depending also on the crisis, the vulnerability, the market. So every time this analysis is done in the beginning to understand the needs, the gaps, and how we can fill the gap, mostly with existing actors first, right? We don't want to duplicate or create duplication with existing services. Yeah. Oh, good. So you know what? Wait for a minute if you're okay. I will just take one or two questions online. So there is a first question. How do you find? What is the process to onboard partners, especially in relationship to not duplicating local infrastructure and existing resource? It's a very good question. Maybe you want to take it for a minute, how to onboard partners? JB. Okay.
So the process is just to inform about your willingness to join. Then there is we have an onboarding process where we accompany the volunteer organization to settle internally all the conditions that are required to have a proper engagement. As we drive a deep change into the sector, and it has been mentioned several occasions. It is really important that the top management of the organization is engaged and endorse the project because it will even, and Mary said it very well, even if it's initially a logistic and supply chain project, it goes much beyond into the organization. It's a deep change. We need to have the full line management from HQ to field engaged, and so that's a big work to be accompanied to create internally the momentum. And when it's ready, then we submit to the advisory board the candidacy, and and there is a vote. And for the moment, every candidate has been approved. So welcome.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, and also at the end, I would say if you have more questions after or to join, whatever, there is a website, hulo.com, but also you can take our numbers. I mean, we LinkedIn. I mean, the conversation continues.
And just to make sure it's well understood, there are two levels of engagement. There is just participating, and so for that to participate, that we have a small charter just to give the rules, gives and takes, and so on, just to make sure that as we working together is creating a bit of interdependency. We just want to make sure that we are all on the same line on the way we work together. So that's for participants. It's done at country level or international level. It's very simple and so on. The second, and what I was talking about just before, is the engagement to become an associate, to become a member of the board. That's where we do the onboarding because it's more engaging for the organization, and so that's the two different steps.
Thank you, JB. So we'll take one more, and then we'll come to you over there. Question from Andrew: at a practical level, how do you manage contracting of country shared services? How do you decide who to contract? I guess that's the question. And who manages the shared services? Have you seen any challenge organization charging such cost to donor, and then the audit part? I'll give it this one.
Okay, many questions in one.
Yeah, very good questions.
Okay, how do we manage contracting at country level? The thing is that we don't have any legal entity at country level for hulo, so we are using the legal entity of the organization who are already set in the countries. Then to contract the services, we use the regular system for contracting of one of the organization. Most of the time, we use one of the organization which is funded by one of the donors. This is what we do today, waiting for hulo to be funded directly from the donor. So, for instance, to give the example of car and the electrician is contracted by Solidarity International, then second to hulo for the organization. That's the way it works. Any challenge with organization charging such costs to donor? So far, no. We haven't seen any challenges, but and for the audit part, we need to wait. The audit is a bit too soon, but we'll see in I would say 1 or 2 years from now. The first audit will start, especially the ECO one, the French CCS as well, and we'll see. But I would say we make everything to be compliant because we are using already the procedure of the organization. We are already compliant with the donor procedure. So for me, that's not a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Ladies first?
Sure. Hi, Sarah from the Kumlock Research Institute in Helsinki. All very positive, very interesting presentations. I was wondering, as you're saying, you're scaling up, what are the key challenges you foresee, maybe from your different perspectives as well in this growth phase for hulo?
Very challenging.
I think the biggest challenge is to be able to scale up and to scale up with the proper human resources skill set. it's a new way of working, and we have to find the big challenge that we have is to find the right person to be able to create this dynamic and has the leadership and the logistic legitimacy and the seniority within the country. So that's really something that we value a lot when we identify someone that has that in the country. That's really something. But the big challenge is that, as Fabrice was telling, we make the obvious possible, is that there is a big appetite all over. And my worry is how can I make it happen in all the countries in the coming years, and that's a real challenge. The biggest one is this one, and after there are some technical, internal technical things on funding, economical models that we still don't have the fully stabilized. Yeah, but that's the key ones.
You want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the presentation. My name is Elie Toulouse. I work for Atlas Logistics, Handicap International, as a logistics analyst. My question is that when I see a presentation like this, I see clearly an opportunity for better knowledge of the logistics environment where we work overall, with so many logistics actors working together. So basically, when we see all the partners' activities, we know that there will be some data that will be gathered. There will be a lot of information, a lot of numbers, and I'm seeing this the aggregation of all this data, all these numbers, as a massive opportunity to analyze that data and to better know and better share our knowledge of the logistics environment where we all evolve. So yeah, my question is, do you guys have any plans in undertaking such an action in the sharing of the knowledge of the logistics environment through the analysis of data that we all gather, because we all do?
Can include those data in the LCA.
Actually, yeah,
Yes.
There's a closing, yeah.
And the response is, of course, yes. Yes, we are building a real department dedicated to business analytics and research. We are also working with academic, with KLU, and we are talking with Umlog also to get the best out of all this aggregated data. But we also do already support each organization that is sharing its data to visualize its own supply chain, and so it's a dedicated support, coaching, or on the data management. So we built on that, and it's as more we will be, as precise our analysis will be, and as the result will be really inspiring for the new activities, new services, the new ways of working, new advocacy, etc., etc. That's the plan. That's really the plan.
So that's the fifth services here, I think it's related to business intelligence.
Okay.
Which is starting. So very, very interesting. Actually, we had a few presentations on that. Right. So we go back to Andrew. How do you decide which country to open next, I guess? And then we can directly combine it with the next question. Do you plan to support partner in custom clearance?
Okay. As mentioned by JB in the earlier presentation, we are using the data of our organization. We are getting the data since 2014, actually, the financial data to get a good overview on what we are buying and where we are buying it, country by country, organization by organization, market by market. So we make a study based on every country and try to select where are the highest sharing procurement opportunities And that will give us clues to say, okay, yeah, there is a big interest in going into that country and that country. Then we'll check on who is present, what organization is physically in this country actually to support the hulo initiative, because we need to send people there. They need to have an office. They need to have a guest house or whatever. Then of course, we are looking at the logistical challenge of this specific country. If this is a Central African Republic, it's going to be different than Lebanon in terms of logistic challenges. We all know that, but that's also that's all pooling resources opportunity, and we'll decide at the end in global engagement committee with the committee of all active members, meeting every 2 weeks, twice a week, and that's how we decide what country we are going to open. And for information, the 2 countries we are opening now is Lebanon, and we have staff who started this Tuesday actually, and we are going to have one hulo staff in Amman in a few weeks from now, working on the wall of Syria.
Just you want to close on custom clearance?
Okay. You want to work on supporting partners in custom clearance. We're not working that much on this topic. It's not a main topic we're using, but of course, when we are talking about humanitarian air bridge, sorry, of course, there is a big deal with custom clearance, but most of the time we use the diplomatic relationship we have with EU or French diplomacy for the custom clearance. But in general, with outside crisis, outside sudden onset, no, we are not planning to work that much on custom clearance. And I want to insist on the fact that there is also the impact group working on custom clearance. So we don't want we want to avoid any duplication with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I have a question. Well done. I'm very impressed of seeing the result, and also the new opportunities that it seems to bring in, and it's for sure will be there. And I have a question. How are you, because what I understand, and I think is quite clear, is hulo is sustainable in itself. It's making that we are reducing resources, we are, sharing human resources, increasing the knowledge. So in a way, we are making it better the way that we work, and we're making it more sustainable. But from my side, how are you trying to see in the long term to make it even more sustainable, trying to look into the procurement, the environmental part of the procurement part, for example, or much more, not just sharing fleet, but going much more into how we can make the fleet more sustainable? How are you bringing this? Because I think, there is a need for that in the sector. We are all trying, it's difficult, but I think having a partner like that, it will actually make it much more easier for the organizations that they are working.
So that's one of our new strategic development for 2023. We'll have an expert in sustainable supply chain that will be hired, and we will connect with all the existing initiatives, because there are quite a lot within organization and across organization, and try to identify the priority ones that we should work on in terms of sustainable procurement, in terms of waste management, and in terms of carbon footprint reductions. That's our 3 identified priorities. We have a partnership also with the expert from ACF that will help us to take off this new activity within hulo. So that's really something that there are many processes that we are building, because working together is in this humanitarian sector is not structured. There is no book, there is no manual. So we are making it from scratch, and we really want to take, as now we could demonstrate that there is obvious value to create. While we scale up, we really want to have this sustainable component to be fully part of the activities. Yeah.
That's okay. That's the last question for you. Yeah.
And yeah, quick question then, Mike, with the Red Cross. A lot of what we've seen has been the response phase. Is there an appetite within hulo where more than one agency are in a country building capacity and preparedness to bring that similar level of coordination, avoiding duplication? So not just coordinating the response, but like I say, the preparedness, building capacity, the local agenda.
So there are a few initiatives that that are already working, that we are working on. I'm thinking of, for example, in Burkina Faso, we are really working on the capacity building of suppliers. So that's something that we start and implement. We have also, since a long time, a project in Madagascar that is not related to hulo directly, but that is with ACF and Help Logistic and Kuno Logistic University, where we, I don't know if you remember, we've made this study of €1 or €1 invested in preparedness, save 7. So we do a proof of concept in Madagascar to test that, but as it is the long run, you invest in preparedness, you have to, and we hope to be able to scale up this this type of project. So it's true that it hasn't been our priority one activity because we really wanted to make sure that we can prove the impact, but it's one of the next round we'll be working on preparedness.
So it is been the remit of.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll close here, but it's not the end. So please stay in touch. Again, hulo is a platform for everybody to join and pool supply chain resources in the country where we work and globally. So there is a website, hulo.coop, and we are here in the room. We'll stay in the room for another 10 to 15 minutes. Please connect. Yes, so we want to add value to your organization too. And then at 11, there is another session in room 3 about how can we scale up this model across the sector. Because pooling resource is not only for logistics of supply chain, it's working better together, could be scaled up across the sectors. We'll have different CEO actors talking how can we scale up. So if you're interested, we'll be in room 3 at 11. Thank you very much for joining, for all of your questions, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you.
Online also.
Online, yes. Vale.